Shabbat Shalom. Boy, that was a lukewarm response, wasn't it? Let's try that again. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
You weren't sleeping, were you? I was thinking a lot this week, and we're not going to stay totally on our subject, though it kind of is. We're going through the offerings in Leviticus. But this topic of thanksgiving and gratitude, which I think most of us know it's important, but really, if you look at Scripture, or if you just back up and observe people, gratitude is the foundation of life. And I watched a video of Dennis Prager's. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's not Christian, he's a Jew. But he works a lot with Christians. In fact, if there's an awesome question and answer session with Dennis Prager and Ravi Zacharias on YouTube, that's worth going to watch, where they are answering questions from students. But he had a little video on gratitude, and he said that gratitude is related to two things: being good and being happy. And it's his belief in the research that they've done that you'll never find good people that aren't grateful, and you won't find happy people that aren't grateful. And he brought out that when we're ungrateful, I'm not sure if it's not ungratitude, it's probably ingratitude. Who knows? The lack of gratitude. But it produces a sense of entitlement, and it produces victimhood. And almost every bad thing that people do springs from feeling like they're owed something, or they were not taken care of. Their rights or their needs weren't met. And he was just bringing out that even in our society today, that the way he looked at it, he said, whenever you look at legislation or something that's going to be done to change laws, codes, look at the issue and say, is this going to increase gratitude or is it going to decrease it? And he said, that should be the basis of making a decision. So I'm still thinking about that, but I'll just start with you. You believe what he said, that gratitude is the basis of being good and being happy. And as I thought about it, I've never seen a happy person that's an ungrateful person. It's impossible. You know how when we look at sets in mathematics, we'll have this set over here A and this set over here B. Sometimes A and B are mutually exclusive. In other words, if you're in A, you're not in B. Sometimes they intersect. But from what I can see, unhappiness is a subset that never intersects with being grateful. And it's interesting how much we will seek happiness, but very often we don't seek to be grateful. To be grateful is very intentional. And this is one of the things I find interesting about human nature. Very often the things that aren't good for us are, quote, natural. And I think we all understand that. If you want to do a little experiment, this is what you can do. Clear off a place in your backyard or your front yard or whatever and water it. But don't plant anything in it. And don't do anything but water it. You'll get a crop. What will it be? It will be weeds. You don't have to plant them. You don't have to try to take care of them. If you just water them, you'll have weeds. If you want grass, if you want vegetables, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to clear it, plant them, and actively remove the competition, the weeds. If you and does it seem fair? Well, maybe it's not fair, but it's how life is. What's good is intentional. And so gratitude is a very intentional thing. And I was thinking about this as it's part of Levi's birthright. It's the birthright in a sense of all of God's people, but it's very much something that God has given to Levi. If you look at 1 Chronicles 23, and this is David, he says, realize we're not going to be in the tabernacle anymore. So Levi's not going to have a job taking down the tabernacle, stacking up the framework, rolling up the curtains and the drapes. Now you're going to be in one place. So he says your job is going to be to continue to prepare the offerings and the bread and all that. But he says you're to stand every morning and thank and praise the Lord. And again at evening. Have you ever noticed that anything you do all the time kind of loses its luster? Am I the only one that has that problem? Not eating. No, that's right. Have you noticed, though, you're right, but I didn't want a piece of pie Thursday night afterward. The next morning I was ready for another piece of pie. It came back pretty fast. But you have to watch it because it seems like, in fact, people say, well, I don't want to do that all the time because it loses its special nature. But Levi's job was to get up and thank and praise the Lord. And I thought about this whole concept of thanking, and I looked through the Scripture, and I'll just throw this out there. What word is usually associated with thanks and immediately precedes it in your English translations? Well, think of a verb. What?
Give thanks.
Give. And praise is always there. But I looked, it's close to 100 times in my New American Standard. Give thanks. And I got thinking about this. Have you ever heard of taking thanks? Have you ever heard of taking thanks? How would you take thanks? You can't take thanks, can you? Why? Because thanks is something that's given. And there's a very fundamental part of what it is. Do you know what that's like? It's like light. You can't take light. You give light. Light gives. If you come into a dark room and you turn on a flashlight, the light gives. It goes. Light doesn't take. In fact, in space, they have something called a black hole. And what's the essence of a black hole? Anything that gets near it, what? It just sucks it in. It takes it. And what I've noticed is that human beings that are ungrateful are black holes. Have you ever been around a person you couldn't give them enough? You couldn't do enough for them? It was impossible. In fact, it's like my brother used to say about me, because he thinks I complain a lot, and I know I don't. He says, John, you'd complain if you were hung with a new rope. That was Tim, by the way. But in all seriousness, so I got thinking about that you give thanks, and the word in Hebrew that's thanks is yada, which comes from yad, hand. And so it's to cast or to throw. To thank it comes from you. And todah, which is, you'll even hear today in Hebrew, if you do something for somebody, they'll say todah, thank you, thanksgiving. The scriptures that say give thanks and thanksgiving, thanks will usually be yada, to cast or throw, and thanksgiving will be todah, which is just from to cast or throw. And so thanksgiving comes from us, and it is like light in that it radiates, it goes, it is not essentially something that takes. And I would be careful to say all taking is not bad. But you do need to realize that Yeshua said it is better to give than to receive. But we have to receive. But there's something that happens the way God made us when we live our lives in a way to take and to receive. Life is not good, it's not happy, it's not pleasant, and we're miserable, and everyone around us is miserable. And so this concept of thanks is really essential. And I think, was it Lois? Somebody mentioned, it could have been Betsy, this 2:27. Defile not the gift of gratitude, for behold, in it is true righteousness. Now see, the writings agree with Dennis Prager. that goodness is in gratitude. And if there be one among you who is without this gift, verily I do declare unto you that that one is without God. Again, agrees with Dennis Prager. That righteousness, goodness are connected to gratitude. And that even our relationship with God is based in gratitude, in thanksgiving. For behold, this comes of God, and before charity, before love, even though thou art denied pleasure in the flesh. And I've never quite figured out that little, I have ideas on that one, doesn't make too much sense. Love shall not lose, for behold, the power of love is in its keeping. That makes sense too. That's something that we always need to remember. We live very much in an appearance-based society. And what makes us feel good. And sometimes we will think, if I agree with something, I believe it. That's not a biblical idea at all. It's a foreign concept to the Hebrew mind, that you believe something that you're not going to do. In our culture, we talk about the distance between the heart and the heart and the head and the heart, which is, it's not really a biblical idea, because in the Bible, mind and heart can sometimes be equivalent. But you all understand what I mean when I say I agree with it. It's like we've confused the message of salvation in Christianity if we can get people to agree that Yeshua is the Son of God. But that's not the issue, is not to agree. It's to believe. Totally different. Completely different. And it also puts us in the position where we are then not having to worry about whether or not somebody has believed. Our job is the best we can to be givers. Give thanks and give light. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one thing that struck me is we've always read it, but there's that one passage of Scripture where, talking about believing, where it says that even the demons believe.
It's James.
And part of that is that believing is okay, believing is good, but it requires action. And like you're saying with giving, we can mentally agree with giving, but then you've got to go give. You've got to go give something. You've got to share something to enable to really embrace the benefit of what it is and the truth of what it is.
Yeah, and see, that's exactly what this thing says. The power of love is in its keeping. Love is powerful when you love. But the idea of love is so beautiful. I would like to make a book writing down all the things in popular culture about what love is. Love is never having to say you're sorry. Wow, and I thought, geez, that one did not work. In my case, love was giving the grace to learn how to say I'm sorry. And I mean, exactly what you're saying, Greg, is true, that Scripture says that belief is more than mental assent. Belief is, I say there's a flood coming. Belief is getting in my car and driving to high ground so the flood won't get me. Not that I agree there's a flood coming and just carrying on like there's nothing different. And we get this confused. The writing goes on to say, if you're a keeper of love and do all things in love, behold, the expression of the Father will follow in your doings, and your gratitude will be a reward unto your neighbor. And I'd like you to just stop and think about this for a minute. Have you ever noticed how significant it is when somebody notes something you've done and thanks you for a specific thing? This is very important in our walk with the Lord. We need to do it to the Lord, and we need to do it to each other. I have to be very intentional about this with myself. In fact, I was thinking about it, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, that it's a good discipline to sit down and write what you're thankful for. To the Lord, to your wife, to your husband, to your friends, to your students. Do this because the discipline of writing down what you're thankful for opens up your mind to all the blessing that you have that you were ignoring because you were concentrating on this one thing that's irritating you. And that one little thing has canceled out all this good stuff. I just wrote down some passages I think it's significant, and this is another one that a lot of Christians will miss because we're so fixated on David bringing the ark to Jerusalem, which was a wonderful picture. But when David brought the ark to Jerusalem, he appointed the Levites as ministers before the ark of the Lord to celebrate, to thank, and praise the Lord God of Israel. The ark was in Jerusalem, and he put people around to thank and praise the Lord constantly. But he left Zadok and his relatives before the tabernacle in Gibeon. And what was their job? Burnt offerings, music, to give thanks to the Lord because his loving kindness is everlasting. In other words, it's going on both places. David made sure that this thanks never stopped. And I think you're aware of this. We even sang the song this morning, I'll enter his gates with thanksgiving. And I think, don't forget, this is really fundamental. If in your life you do not sense God's presence, you've got to walk through the door, and the door is to be thankful. Isaiah 60, violence will not be heard again in your land, nor devastation or destruction within your borders, but you will call your walls salvation and your gates praise. Speaking of the New Jerusalem. Do you know how many scriptures hint or intimate that thanksgiving is coming in? And we have a passage in the writings that echoes 2 Corinthians 3 where Paul says, whenever someone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. And I used to think, well, how do you turn to the Lord? I don't know about you. I tried to focus on the Lord, and then I'd realize I don't know what he looks like. And so I'd think of pictures of Yeshua, and then I'd realize, you know what? Those pictures look more like a Greek or a Scandinavian. They don't look anything like a Jewish Yeshua. And then I realized I'm not supposed to be concentrating on the physical thing. I believe if you look, there's a command that says there's to be nothing that we shape to worship. So I says, all right, Lord, how am I supposed to look at you? How am I supposed to turn to you? The act of giving thanks. When you start to say, Lord, I thank you for my life. I thank you for my condition. I thank you for where I live, when I was born, for my parents. I thank you for the opportunities I have. I thank you for the food that I have, the clothes, my house. When you start to list those things, you'll discover that in giving him credit for what you have, you start to see him because you have turned to him. That's why it's the gates. Psalm 87, the Lord loves the gates of Zion more than all the other dwelling places of Jacob. That's an interesting passage. And there are a lot of those that you could find where the preeminence of thanks. And if you study the role of Levi and Aaron, over and over, they're told your job is to give thanks and praise. And I think sometimes we look at that and think, geez, that could get boring. And yet it really doesn't if you're actually doing it. See, when Hezekiah restored the temple, 2 Chronicles 31, Hezekiah appointed the divisions of the priests and the Levites by their divisions, each according to his service. This was David's thing. Remember? Divided them up into 24 courses. This was all something. But he said, the priests and the Levites for burnt offerings, for peace offerings, to minister, and to give thanks and to praise in the gates of the camp of the Lord. So it's just on and on. Psalm 22, yet you are holy, you who are enthroned upon the praises of Israel. The word here, enthroned, is yeshav, which is the word to sit. So it says, you sit, you dwell on the praises of Israel. If you want to turn to the Lord, you start to thank him. Here's the wonderful thing, you don't have to feel like it. Because I don't know about you, there are certain things I never feel like doing until I discipline myself to do it. Now sometimes like on Thanksgiving, most of us are just, there's so much wonderful about it, we instinctively want to praise the Lord. Not every day is like that. Ephesians 5, and do not get drunk with wine, for that is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit. speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody with your heart to the Lord, always giving thanks for all things in the name of our Lord Yeshua the Messiah, to God, even the Father. This is one of those scriptures that kind of bugged me, because there were some things I didn't want to give thanks for. Giving thanks for all things. So I went to 1 Thessalonians 5, and I liked it a little better because it said, in everything give thanks. Because some days I didn't feel like thanking for. But here's the interesting thing. If all things work together for good to them who love the Lord, who are called according to his purpose. Greg started today with reminding us we're called. Then has anything happened to us that we can't be thankful for? If it's all going to work for good? You know, it's interesting how very often the things we hate the most and we fight against the most, when we look back at our lives, they were the best things that happened to us. Go ahead, Greg.
For me, I think one a really important thing to deal with, and you mentioned the one scripture that the power of love is in its keeping.
Yeah.
And I find, you know, we can talk about thankfulness all day long. And my problem is that it's got to move, as you were talking about, going from your head to your heart. It's got to get off of that academic plane of knowing about something and really not knowing it. And like I say, the power of love is in the keeping. The only way that you'll really know about love is if you go out and practice and keep it.
If you expose yourself to the vulnerability.
And that really puts you in a whole different level of walking in the light, because then there's no excuses. You cannot just say, well, I love people. Well, that's like faith without works. Let's see what you're doing with that love. How are you blessing people? How are you supporting people? How are you giving people or helping to give people, meeting their needs and things like that? So somewhere along the line, this idea of getting out of the realm of just a good idea and into the realm of practice and actually doing it is where I'm at.
Well, and I think it really, I would say it's where, and it's like on taking this subject about being thankful. You know, we're all thinking about it, and right now I've made it kind of academic, and I'll try to move it to not be quite so academic. What you're saying, Greg, is absolutely the truth. Until I start being thankful, this is an idea. And it's a good idea. I mean, I love the story my dad used to tell. They went to this, what's the name of the club where they speak? There's a... Toastmasters, yeah. Thank you. There was a Toastmasters banquet. And, you know, everybody there is a great speaker. And there was a famous actor there. And they were going around giving toasts and speeches. And somebody said, would you rise up and give us a reading, something? So he got up and quoted the 23rd Psalm. And when he got done, they were clapping and shouting and cheering. It was so awesome. He says, I have a friend here. Would it be okay if he said the 23rd Psalm? So this little old pastor got up. And he quoted the 23rd Psalm. When he got done, tears were running. And the people were crying. And the actor stood up and said one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. He said, I know the 23rd Psalm. He knows the shepherd. And I've never forgotten that, because we live in the academic sometimes. You know, I know this is true. And I was thinking about this Thanksgiving thing. One of the reasons we love Thanksgiving and we love Christmas is we do this stuff. We actually go sit with our family, even if they're Democrats. That's a laugh line, by the way. And I mean, and sometimes we don't realize that God has laid out for us the way to live, and one of the ways to live is to be thankful. And the writing says something to me that's very powerful. When you're not thankful, you're without God. Because if God is the one who, I don't know about the rest of you, but there are days I'll wake up and I'll just think how awesome life is. The fact I can live. One day I was at the dairy, and we've had these warm days, and the sun was going down, and it was just incredible sunsets. You've seen them lately. The gold and the red and iridescent hues, and it just staggers you. And it will just hit me and wash over me. I love life. I love this experience. Where did it come from? It didn't come from me. I was lucky to be able to enjoy it. And I'm grateful, and I realize it's from God. And it is a very essential thing to be grateful, because we also, just as much as we see pretty sunsets, we get hurt in life. We get irritated. People let us down. I'm going to mention something to you I've talked to you about before, and I think for me this was an eye-opener. It may help you, it may not. There's a rabbinical understanding called that we have two worlds that run parallel. One is the world of connection, the other one is the world of estrangement. And one of the fundamental beliefs about these two worlds is you can't be in both at the same time. You're either in the world of connection or you're in the world of estrangement. And the world of estrangement is animosity, anger, resentment, anxiety, sadness, criticism, worry, fear. Listen to those. Animosity, anger, resentment, anxiety, sadness, criticism, worry, fear. This world of estrangement means we feel alienated from people, and a lot of times alienated from life. The world of connection is love, joy, tranquility, optimism, harmony, generosity, faith in God. What's interesting is when you read the characteristics of the world of connection, it sounds like the fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. But here's the thing that I thought was interesting, how the rabbis came up with. If you find yourself in the world of estrangement, or you find yourself in a place where you're not sure, the first thing to do is analyze, where am I? What's my location? So they call it the spiritual GPS. If you look and your situation has you unhappy, angry, critical, whatever else you might want to say, you're not in the world of connection. You're in the world of estrangement. Then the next question, okay, where am I? The next question, where do I want to be? And you know what's funny? A lot of times the answer is right here being miserable. There's something about being mad and angry. What's that great song by Terry Clark? What's the name of it? She wakes up and she and her husband have a fight. I just want to be mad for a little while. Is that what it is? I can't. Anyway, she gets up, they have a fight, and he wants to resolve it. And she says, go away. We'll fix it later. Right now, I want to be mad. And the song is fantastic because there are times I just want to be mad. So don't mess with my anger. I'm irritated. But what they tell you is, where do I want to be? And really, we all want to be in the world of connection. The way out of the world of estrangement is giving. See, in Hebrew, the word ahava, love, comes from heb, which is to give. And see, in our society, a lot of times love is about getting. Have you ever noticed that? Love in the Bible is never about getting. In fact, the word in Greek that we use for love is agape, which completely means to give. And there was this Jewish lady that wrote this article. I really enjoy her. Her name is Sarah Yocheved Rigler. But she tells in the story how she had gone to this big meeting, this big convention, and they were having a conversation, and out of the blue, her friend Joan just said something devastating, just cruel. It just attacked her.
And she backed away and she says, I'm not comfortable. And she went away and she was just seething. She was furious. She was so mad for no reason. Her friend had just said something, and I'm sure that's never happened to any of you. Or someone just said something out of the blue and just... And so she went away, and quite a while, and then she remembered this spiritual GPS, and she says, I know where I am. I'm in the world of estrangement, and I have the right to be here. I've paid for the ticket. Do I want to be here? No. And she said, really, I could have gotten out of this any way, probably by saying something kind to somebody, thanking somebody. But she says, I wanted to go back to the world of connection first class. So she went to the lady that offended her. And she said it didn't matter what she said. She said, I don't want to be enemies. Will you forgive me? I forgive you. And of course, what the story points out is that it was in giving that she came back to a place of peace in the world of connection. But it cost her, but it was well worth the cost, but she had to make that decision. And so, that's the world of connection and estrangement has some bearing on this whole concept of being thankful. And what I wanted to leave with us today, we just have a few minutes left, is that you and I can make a conscious decision to be thankful. And like Greg says, we don't need to agree with being thankful is good. We can be thankful. But it takes a little effort. And I was thinking about this. In fact, I told Joy about it. I was thinking, what are all the things I'm grateful for that Joy does for me? And I said, wow, there's quite a bit. When you start writing it down, you are overwhelmed. But what was interesting is when I told her the impact it did on her. Because I didn't tell her that. I didn't tell her that I appreciate that she cleans the house, washes the clothes, fixes the meals, raises the children, decorates the house, takes care of me in so many ways you cannot believe. Watching my schedule, my clothes, getting me the things that I really love, checking on me when I'm late. She's sometimes not real happy. Reminding me of appointments, obligations. She loves the kids. She loves the grandkids. She loves my family as much as she loves her family. She greets me with joy. One of my favorite things about Joy is coming home to her. But do you realize the impact it had for me to tell her what I like about what she does? The fact I was grateful didn't mean a thing. Well, it meant a little. Tell them. Write it down. And you can do this with the Lord. You can write it down. What are you thankful for? I mean, it's like I deal with this at the dairy all the time. I have to catch animals to give them shots or to breed them or to do things, and sometimes they will not go in. Until I capture them, I can do nothing to them, And so I'll have prayers like, Lord, can't you help the cow go in? Please have an angel push the cow. Come on, something. And it's funny how sometimes I'll be there oh, Lord, the cow will walk up and go in. I'll lock it, and I'm so happy, and 10 minutes later, I forget that beautiful little thing that the Lord did, just because I'm His boy. Write it down. Say it. And, again, I'm serious. Do this with your brother, your sister, your spouse, your teacher, somebody that's important to you. Lois mentioned, I think it was Lauren, writing something about what your teaching had meant to her. Will you ever forget how that made you feel? No, because gratitude, it's the base of all goodness. And I think I've had this happen to me a couple times in my life, and I was thinking about this, and all of us as spouses, I was thinking how much I appreciate the fact that Joy turns my building into a home. It's a place where I go and I'm safe. It's family. Tell people. Write it down. And one of the favorite things that has ever happened to me in my life, and I will never forget it, was the surprise 60th birthday party for me. How my family pulled this off without me knowing is amazing, but I'm pretty brain dead, so maybe it's not that amazing. But seriously, Kaya said, Kaya came to me and he says, John, after lunch, could you go over with me to the odd? I need some prayer. I want to get a group of people to pray. So I walk over here, sure. And I open that door. And there's this huge crowd in here. Happy birthday. And here's the thing. Just the fact you remembered was so powerful. But what was so awesome about that, and I'll never forget, is everything that was done indicated somebody that knew me. They picked the songs I liked, the things I liked, everything they did, they knew me. It wasn't out of left field. John Paul and Kaya sang Perhaps Love, one of my favorite songs of all time. And they played This Magic Moment, which is one of my favorite songs from all time. And I mean, the whole thing was incredible, but here's what I'm trying to share with you from a personal point of view. When people take the time to know who you are and thank you specifically, it will change your life and change the giver and the receiver. That gratitude, it takes effort. I don't know how much time they took putting that thing together. It's an incredible gift to me. Nothing I necessarily deserve, but what a blessing. And I remember all my kids getting up there and singing a hymn, and I forgot what hymn it was. Because they said, what's Dad's favorite hymn? Well, I've got about 400. It wasn't In the Garden. What did you sing, Sharon?
No, I think we tried to learn Overshadowed.
His Eye is on the Sparrow. See, I have kids that remember things, which I don't. And anyway, all of us could find things like this that people have done for us. And when you think how much it means to you when people specifically notice what is important to you, take the time to tell somebody the little thing they said, what they did, what it meant. See, right now, I said that, and I remember Sister Betsy coming to my house after we lost Joseph. And we were there, we were in tears, and say, you can be sad and be grateful. Being sad does not put you in the world of estrangement. But no one knew what to say. Joseph was gone. We were so sad. She brought over a tray of sweet rolls, and she says, I don't know what to say. I just wanted you to know that we're thinking about you and that we love you. I'll never forget it. Never forget it. And there are so many things like that in my life. I would know better if I rewrote them down. Write it down. Make a list. It wouldn't hurt to recite it every day. And God does not tell us to thank Him because He needs to hear it. He tells us to thank Him because it changes us. It brings us into His presence. And, a couple other things. They were talking about Facebook today. And my family, not everybody likes Facebook. For my family, it's a lifesaver because we just aren't very good at keeping in touch with each other. And they took pictures of after Thanksgiving dinner at Janelle's. All of us got there in the picture, and I believe it was everyone in the family. Everyone that has the unfortunate circumstance of tracing back to Joy and me, by in-law or outlaw. Anyway, there's this big picture, and there were several of them, and Sharon, bless her heart, had a hard time catching a picture where how many of us are there?
I have no idea.
In any case, getting us all looking right, anybody know that a family picture where everybody's looking right, it's basically impossible. Anyway, so I made this note. I just wrote and I said, good looking crew. And Joanne had written under that. Several people made comments. I'm going with John's opinion on this one. This is an amazing and an amazingly good-looking crew. Now here's the comment that got me. Which, by the way, is exactly what Dad would have said. And I suddenly started missing my dad. And I realized I act like him a lot of times, much to his detriment. But little things make a difference. And then there was a picture that I posted on there of Ben and Chandra sitting by Kenneth, and Christian was there harassing Ben. And I said, postprandial bliss. And you may not have any idea what prandial is, but prandial has to do with eating. And it was a favorite word of my dad's. And of course, in medicine, we learned about prandial. So I had written that, and Kathy saw this, and she says, "You keep talking like that, and I'm not going to miss Dad so much." And it was just funny how these little things remind us of what we're grateful for. Have you ever stopped to think of all the things you're grateful for your parents? What they did for you, what they meant to you. And see, Arlene did something at first I thought she was kind of loony. She said, "Well, I'm still alive. I'm going to have a celebration so I can enjoy it." So she and Heber came out here and we had that big celebration. And I thought, how smart. Have you ever noticed the nice things we say after people are gone? It is a very, very good thing to express your gratitude specifically while they're alive.
Hey, John.
Yeah, go ahead.
You just sparked a memory. It's just my family are on my mom's side are Mormon, obviously. We went to a lot of funerals, open casket funerals, and the old ladies would they would come by the casket and they would say, "Boy, don't they look great?" Those are the kind of memories I want to be with.
Yeah, I think as a kid you're going, "That looks great." But you still have the memory, and that's worth something. No. All that being said, I love Thanksgiving. I think Thanksgiving is a wonderful God-ordained time because it gets us together in families. It reminds us of what we're grateful for. We celebrate our family bond. If you're lucky, you don't turn it into political arguments. But seriously, I think one of the things we could do that would enhance our walk with the Lord is to be more specific about our gratitude to Him and to people. Because when you're thankful to people, you'd be amazing how it opens your heart up to the Lord. Because you realize that's where it all came from. And one of the things that I was thinking about being grateful, being thankful, and a huge amount of being thankful, one of the things that really transforms us is it gets us outside of ourselves. If I'm looking at the world in a way that I'm not getting everything I need, all my needs aren't being addressed. I mean, I'll even hear people tell me, "I don't go to church because my needs aren't met." And I'm like, you missed the point. You're not going to church to get. You're going there to give. And in giving, you will receive. But I can guarantee you right now, if you're doing anything in your life with the point is to get something, that relationship will eventually go sour because you aren't going to get enough. Lois.
Kind of interesting, all kinds of things flood when you start talking about this, but thinking that I think I might have said this before, but growing up there was a lady in Salt Lake Church, her name was Ruby Stopper.
Oh yeah, good alto.
Yeah, and my mom and Ruby were good friends, and Ruby, if you ever got to know her, she had quite a sense of humor. It was funny. So I'd be in the back seat listening to them, and my mom at this point at one point had a Nova. I don't know if you knew these were an old Chevy car or Chevy car. It's kind of, and my dad had gotten it. It was a V8 engine and had a black vinyl top. And Ruby and Mom would stop at the stoplight, and there'd be some hunky kid next to him. And Ruby would go by, floor it.
That sounds like Ruby.
We would laugh, but I always appreciated her. And she sang alto. I always knew how to sing alto because of Ruby. But, when I was a teenager, you're so self-absorbed, and the world's about you when you're a kid. And I remember my mom saying something to me that Ruby didn't think I liked her, and I remember that just throwing cold water in my face, going, "What? Why didn't she think I liked her?" because I never acknowledged her. I thought she was the funniest lady. I liked her so much. I appreciated her so much. And why would she ever have thought that? Well, because I never bothered to acknowledge her in any way, as that self-centered teenager that I was. I remember at first when my mom said that, I was mad. I thought, why would you think that? That's stupid, I mean, I don't think that. Why would you put that blame on me? Then I, something got through to go, and I did actually. Why would you think that? And she goes, well, do you ever say anything? Do you ever? And, it really it was a turning point in my life, actually, to say, am I so self-centered that I don't look out and tell somebody thank you? Or somebody that's older, know that maybe they meant something in my life. It really did affect me at that point. It kind of changed my life view. Really.
Yeah, that's a good little story, Lois, because a lot of times the way we act doesn't accurately portray how we feel, because we don't stop to think about how important it is. I know I've had some of that problem too. You don't want to say much or get involved. And I think when you look at this whole concept of being thankful, it's impossible to be thankful to God and not thankful to all the people He's put in our lives. And telling people is just incredibly powerful. I'm willing to bet any of you here can rehearse in your mind times when people have said something, they appreciated what you did, what you said, just some little thing, and you'll never forget it, because it's such a precious thing. And so I look at being thankful as kind of the act of getting outside of ourself. I mean, you think about it, a baby, like right now, Kishana knows what it's like to have a baby. And babies need everything, don't they? They need love, they need food, they need clean. They really don't give much but demands. That's what they're there for. And we pour a lot of love into them. Now that's great. But the act of growing up is coming to a place where you start to look outside yourself. You start to see other needs, and thanks recognizes that what Ann did, what George did, what Teresa positively impacted me. See, I was just thinking about this looking at Ann. I don't know if I've ever thanked Ann for making all that bread. Do you realize how much good bread we had because of Ann? I apologize. I don't think I've ever said. Yes, some of you know. But do you realize it's important to say it? It is important to say it, because just like, I like your story about Ruby, because it wasn't how you felt. It's what she knew from what you say. You need to say it. Get outside yourself. Be a light. Shine. And I know I was thinking about this with the Lord. Well, what do you thank the Lord for? And sometimes it seems so elementary. One of the things I will start doing is I'll start taking credit for my life. I'll start thinking that I designed this, and I go, what did I have to do with it? Nothing. I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose the time I was born. I didn't choose where I didn't choose any of it. The friends I have, every good thing I have is God. He deserves the credit. Because I have a weird mind, and most of you know that, and my kids and grandkids really know I have a weird mind. And I think of, what's effective, what works in human relationships. And I like music a lot. And one of the things I will notice are songs, love songs. And you know what makes an effective love song? Is a song that's grateful. There was a song I really liked when I was a kid, and I was trying to figure out who sang it that I remembered. And the Paris Sisters, is that a group? Bobby Vinton, I know, sang it. The Lettermans sang it. And I was listening to the different versions, trying to find the version that was the one I liked. But I'll bet you all know the song, I Love How You Love Me. Do you know that song? If you're young, you won't. That's because you haven't grown up yet. But I looked at this song, and I thought, the essence of reaching somebody is being specifically grateful. Like if someone came and thanked me for my curly black hair, I'd know they didn't know me. And that's,
Or how much I love soul and blues. No. And I think jazz is fun to play, but I don't like that much listening to it unless it gets over into Gershwin, then it's awesome. And all this is to say, everybody's unique, everybody's different. But here, I wrote that, I didn't have to write this down, I pulled this off the internet. I love how your eyes close whenever you kiss me, and when I'm away from you, I love how you miss me. I love the way you always treat me tenderly, but darling, most of all, I love how you love me. I can hear that song in my head. And here's another thing you'll know. The song, you kids in your teens and early 20s, those are the songs that will stick with you the rest of your life. You'll be old like I am, and you'll still remember. It's amazing to me, though, because it's like Kenneth and I will have friendly arguments. Kenneth and I have had a few arguments. It's funny. I know what it is. Everyone here knows that Leaving on a Jet Plane is only good by Peter, Paul, and Mary. Right, Lois?
I'll tell you that. Yeah, Peter, Paul, and Mary made it.
Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yep.
But Kenneth likes the one that, who's that horrible group that did it?
I don't know their name, but they were on the.
Anyway, he's played it for me, and it was really famous, but I didn't like it. Was it? Anyway,
Well, it was on the Armageddon soundtrack, but I can't remember the girl's name is some Russian.
and here's what I'm pointing out. I was familiar with this one. That one didn't fit. And yet those who learned that one heard Peter, Paul, and Mary and said, oh, that's so old-fashioned. and another big debate that I've had with people is Whitney Houston singing I Will Always Love You. Well, it's not near as good as Dolly Parton. But it depends, all this just to say, we as human beings are very complex, very particular. And one of the hallmarks of getting to know people is to actually find out what makes them tick. I know that for me, I struggle with that level of intimacy. And yet, even when you look at Yeshua, he really had 12 intimate friends. You're not going to make intimate friends with the whole world. But to the extent that you desire to become close to people, you learn to be grateful for them, and you learn to find out what they enjoy, what makes them tick, so to speak. I read you some of that love song. I have the whole thing here. I won't read it all. But here's what I thought was interesting, and probably most of you don't know this. Some of the early House of Aaron songs are love songs that Claude wrote to Bertha and then rewrote them as hymns. How many of you knew that?
I did.
What?
I did.
Yeah. And, but
It's reviewing some of the songs for her.
But I was thinking about that and thinking, when you read the Psalms, if you read the Psalms are very, in my words, terminology, they're naked. David exposes who he is. He doesn't hold anything back. If he's downhearted, discouraged, if he's full of joy, it's out there. But when you read the Psalms, the power in his Psalms is the gratitude which leads to praise. And as we bring this to a close, let me just, how I see this, and this does not mean that I'm right, but gratitude and praise are a little different. Do you agree with me? And let me show you how I see this. How many of you like pie? Definitely. See, I like all the pie. My family doesn't like pumpkin pie. I don't know what's wrong with them, but they don't. But it's funny, I can still hear Jim Withers in my head saying, pumpkin pie? That's vegetables. But when Joy or Janine or Ann or anybody fixes a nice pie and you look at it, you will say, thanks for the pie. That's Thanksgiving. Do you understand that praise is you are a good cook? Do you see the difference?
Thanksgiving leads to praise. When we're grateful and we're thankful for what people have done, then we realize those attributes that bless us. See, David, I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I'm saved from my enemies. You sense in David, he starts off saying, Lord, you're my fortress. You've been the rock in my life. And out of that comes the praise of who God is. Which brings us to, what's worship then? Worship is a posture. Worship is a change in how we are arranged, so to speak. Do you realize that in both Greek and Hebrew, every word for worship involves bowing, kneeling? And so, here's your simple thing you can remember. This is John's Gospel. Thanks, thank you for the pie. Praise, you were a good cook. Worship, you give her a kiss. That should be easy enough to remember, right? That doesn't mean you can give me a kiss, okay? But then I'm not a good cook either. Truly, as we close, though, being thankful transforms our life. It really does. To wake up in the morning, to list the things you're grateful for, to look at the people in your lives, to list what you're grateful for, actually empowers you to change the things you don't like. Where complaining and whining and being resentful saps any energy you have to transform your life. And I like to remind myself, I'm either going to be over here in this land of being thankful or over here in this land of being murmuring, critical, and resentful. I don't get to do both at once. Now, there's a certain kind of complaining that's just kind of enjoyable. And I try not to do it where it will hurt people's feelings, because I've definitely done that. If you've been around my family, we've taken complaining to an art form. My kids even think I complain, but I think everyone here knows that's not true. Right, Alicia? Good, she said right. But seriously, it's a wonderful time. Families are together. It's a time of Thanksgiving. Be proactive and intentional. That's the thing I noticed, just like I say, since I was been thinking about this all week, and I just, like I told you, I did this with joy. I just started to list the things I was thankful for. And you could see the transformation in her because I had noticed, which is pretty amazing for me, kind of brain dead. So take the time, notice, and tell somebody. Let's all stand. George, would you close for us, please?
Heavenly Father, you are the King of the universe, and we give you thanks and praise.
Amen.
We are so grateful for this day, this Sabbath, where you brought us together. Continue to stir in us gratitude, thanks, adoration, and worship for you. Let us not take each other for granted. You are a loving and giving God. Continue to work in us. Be with us the rest of the Sabbath, and this week as we go forward. We'll give you thanks and praise in the name of your Son, Yeshua.
Amen. Quarter till.